Crushing the cultural Marxists. Breaking the grip of corrupt oligarchs. And taking back our country through America first. Here's your host of Liberty and Reality, John Henson.
Welcome back to the Liberty and Reality podcast. I didn't plan to do a show today, but I saw what happened yesterday in the primary elections out in New York and thought that I should probably say something because, it was a Marxist landslide, and I think it reflects kind of a national trend right now that should be alarming to everybody. It's going to affect all of us. I believe all of the primaries over in New York were national seats, house seats and whatnot. So, that's not the final thing. It's just the primaries, but just gives you a direction. It tells you the direction the Democratic Party is taking right now. And I'm not saying every Democrat, and I'm not trying to call out Democrats. I have friends that are Democrats, and they're not Marxists. They don't believe in this crap. So there's a national Democratic problem, a party problem right now. And either, some of those older folks, because I think this is a movement of the young. And I understand it. I understand where it's coming from. The economy's not good. A lot of people are suffering. A lot of the working class are suffering, and they're looking for a way out. They're looking for an answer. They're looking for, help from their government. And these establishment Democrats and Republicans have not helped them. They've run the economy into the ground, and they just keep doing it. But Marxism is not going to be the answer. Marxism has been terrible everywhere it's been tried. So I want to talk about it. And I know I'm just a small podcaster. I just have a few people out there watching right now. And I'm hoping that you'll share this, because this one, to me, is, of all the episodes, this is pretty important. And I think we really need to get the word out, because if we don't talk about this and we don't get it out, we're going to be looking at lots of Marxists sitting in government, making decisions for us in November or January when they're sworn in. And I don't want that. I don't think you want that, but that's where we're headed right now. Not politics as usual. So hopefully I'm reaching enough of you, and I'm convincing you that this is important. Because right now we're seeing a lot of extreme ideologies take over in the country. And Marxism is one of them. We all know the history of Marxism. And just let me make this clear, especially to my Democrat friends. They don't have an answer for some of the things that Trump has done. I don't know why they've taken some of the actions they have. I'm angry. I'm angry just like everybody else. And I 100% understand everybody's frustration. But as I've said previously, Trump is not the America First coalition. He lit the fire, but he's not the coalition. And he's kind of separated himself from what America First was. Now, maybe you'll come back to it. Maybe these troubles he's having with his own party and what's going on with Iran, maybe he'll come back. He'll come back around. I mean, the Republicans just voted in a war powers resolution, effectively limiting what the president can do with the military, which, thank God, I wish that had been done, a couple decades ago. But it's done now, and it's definitely a break between Trump and some of the Republicans in Congress. So, but I'm not promoting Trumpism. That's the key here. I'm not promoting Trumpism. I'm promoting America First. I'm promoting the coalition that came together in 2024. It's a coalition of establishment Republicans, of libertarians, of progressive Democrats, of people that came across the aisle. It's really a common sense party. It's the pro-American party. So talked about this in previous episodes, and that's what we need to get back to. Not a adventurous, pro-war party, because I think they're done with that shit. They're done with that shit. We did that. In the military, I did that for 20 years. And in the end, I got that very embarrassing, disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. We didn't achieve anything. Iraq is still a mess. Afghanistan is more of a mess now that we're gone, because the Taliban came back. So a lot of sacrifice for nothing. And that includes some of these smaller wars in the Middle East. It's just hasn't solved a whole lot. So, and I got to ask my Democrat friends that are, what the fuck is going on with the Democratic Party right now? I hope you can see it. I know it's hard to break with years of the thing that you voted for. I mean, I get it. A lot of times politics is a team sport, right? You look over, you go, I can't vote for the Republicans. They don't represent me at all. I felt the same way about Democrats. I mean, the only time I ever voted for a Democrat was in a primary election here when Tulsi Gabbard was running for president. I did vote for her. That's it. They just didn't, they didn't comport with my worldview. So I totally can understand why you would want to go with the flow. But I mean, this is, especially for those of us 40 and older. Now, I get the younger crowd doesn't understand this, but those of us 40 and older, we lived during the Cold War. We understand communism, right? At least the older 40s, I guess. But we understand, we remember when the wall fell, and, we all cheered when it fell. We remember the scourge of the Soviet Union. We remember Tiananmen Square, right? When the Chinese populace, they wanted their freedoms and they protested for it. I guess it was one of the first color revolutions, one of the first uprisings, populist uprisings. The Chinese government just brutally put it down. They brought tanks out there and they killed, I don't know how many people. I don't think it's ever been publicly released, but they cracked down. And we remember seeing that. That's what communism does. You don't get to have freedom in a communist country. When the Marxists take over, that's it. You fall in line, and you won't find that out until they take over, until they're in power. I mean, when the communists were taking over China and the young Red Guards were out, bludgeoning and yelling at those rich academics and business people, I'm sure it was a good time. I'm sure they thought they were reforming society until the Marxists were entrenched in the government, and then they lost their freedoms. The way it is. It's the way Marxism works. You got to understand that. It has never worked anywhere. I don't care what any propagandist wants to tell you. It just hasn't been tried right. It hasn't been done right. No, there is no doing Marxism right. It doesn't comport with human nature. It doesn't comport with your liberty. It is groupthink. It has to be forced on you. All the dissenters have to be eliminated. And if you're a dissenter, you're going to be eliminated. Go read 1984, George Orwell. He talked about the tricks that these Marxists use, these dictators use. That's what Marxists become, are dictators. And he was writing about the Soviet Union and their mind control. And he understood that because he was an intelligence officer during World War II. He got it, right? And he took part in propaganda operations. So he understood how propaganda worked to control a population. So go read that book. Read that book if you haven't. So, really just, you can see these migrant boats that flee from Cuba, and people risk their lives to get out of Cuba. And a lot of Marxists talk about Cuba being some kind of paradise, that it has a bad reputation because of American propaganda. Well, you know what? I've never been to Cuba, but all I have to do is point to the migrant boats. Because people are leaving for a reason. They're risking their lives to go out on the open ocean, little makeshift rafts with their families to get out of Cuba. There's a reason. Okay, so whatever propaganda you've been told, it's a lie. Just go ask one of those migrants. Just look at it. Okay, and go look at North Korea. Oh my God. Everybody knows what's going on in North Korea. That's what communism gets you. It always gets you there to that place. It has to, because when communism rolls in, when Marxism and socialism rolls in first, they take all the resources from all the producers. That's the first step every time. And for a while, everybody has a sugar high until all the producers are gone. Who's going to provide the jobs? Where's the government going to get the money to provide all this free stuff? Well, it's gone. So they have to go on the working class. They have to put all that burden on the working class, and you lose your freedoms. They will work you like a dog. They will work you like a slave, because that's what you become. You become a slave to the state. That's where Marxism leads. It has to. It has to. Everybody shares the resources, I guess. Well, it never works, because there's always an oligarch class at the top in every Marxist country. We all know that. We all see it. I mean, it's no secret, right? And yeah, the resources may be shared. What's left? What's left? So keep that in mind. Capitalism isn't perfect. I get it. There is inequality. A lot of that inequality is because we have an almost $40 trillion national debt. You know, a lot of that has to be blamed not on the free market capitalists, but on this corporatist system of government we have now, where the Fed just makes money out of thin air. So keep that in mind. Where there's free market economics, actual markets, it thrives. It does so much better than anywhere else because it comports with human nature. As people, we are competitive. It's just in our nature. It's the way it is. So, there's no better system out there. And got a moth flying around here. Sorry about that. He wants to be in the video. But yeah, there's no better system in human economic success and political success than the free market and Western liberal democratic thought. So now, by all means, I encourage my Democrat friends to consider joining this America First movement if it can be reignited like it was in 2024. Now with Trump, Trump's going to be gone, but with the coalition that we had. Remember, there were progressives that crossed over and became America Firsters. Tulsi Gabbard, she was the former vice chair of the Democratic National Convention, and she became the DNI. RFK Jr., he was a Kennedy, obviously, lifelong Democrat. So even if you look at the media, like the America First media landscape, these podcasters, the Young Turks, very progressive podcast, but they talk to people like Tucker Carlson. They talk to the America Firsters. They find a lot of commonalities and a lot of things that we could ally with them on. One of them is being anti-war, right? Really, I like to call it pro-peace. I'm not really anti-war. I'm pro-peace, because obviously, when it comes to self-defense, I think we should be able to defend our interests. But that's one of those things where we have commonality, I think, with the progressives, along with some other things. The oligarchs, they obviously don't like the oligarchs either. And we got to talk about the right kind of oligarchs. So you have to figure that out. And then you got like Bill Maher. He's sounding like a Republican lately. If you watch his show and listen to things he's talking about, he's been criticizing the Democratic Party for a lot of this Marxist stuff too. So, we as a group are the only ones going to keep the Marxists from taking over. They're headed that way. They have momentum right now. They do. And, if you think that's extreme or you think that I'm wrong, just look. look at what's going on. That's all I can say. Look what's going on. Look who's winning these primary elections. And the only people that are going to stop it is us together. So right now, the America First Coalition is just tearing itself apart over this foreign policy crap, over this Iran thing, which we all disagree with, which the classical liberal side disagrees with, I guess. And, there's a completely dangerous, far worse transition happening over on the Democrat side. Democrat establishment obviously is losing its grip and voted out in favor of these Marxists. So, the normies that we're not seeing people running successful election campaigns for us. We just see the extremists winning. And they're running to fundamentally overthrow the American free market system, overthrow our Western civilization as we know it. So let's look at the candidates that won here recently, the Marxist candidates that have been picking up the W's. And the first one I'm going to talk about is it's hard to pronounce this name, Daria Liza Avila Chevalier. And she just won the primary for New York's 13th congressional district. Pulled off an upset. She knocked out a 5-term incumbent senator. And she had heavy backing from the Bernie Sanders wing of the party. But she's a radical community organizer. Public record is full of anti-American rhetoric. And, she's a redistributionist. So she, at one point, openly bragged about wiping her hands on an American flag instead of a napkin. And, these type of things that are just crazy. It's just an attack on our civilization, attack on our country. She's a prison abolitionist. She refuses to state whether convicted murderers should be locked up. It's crazy. She's launched radical campus groups on Columbia University, and she posted "Death to America" on one of her message boards in college when she was at Columbia. So, on the campaign trail, she's been an open borders advocate. I think just about all these Marxists are open borders. They don't want any borders, no restriction on who comes into the country. They all want to abolish ICE. So they want to completely stop any deportations. And that, obviously, illegal aliens in the country was a big issue in this last election. Probably one of the biggest reasons that Trump was elected. So we're going to go back to that. They're just going to open the borders again. And who knows who is going to be in your community, So her campaign is focused on government seizure of housing. It's crazy. So she promotes those dark money networks who finance radical movements. The same movements we're talking about. A lot of them are coming from China. And these are the movements that destroy our national sovereignty. And then there's Claire Valdez. She won the Democratic primary for New York's 7th congressional district. And she won a landslide. So she is going to win her seat for the U.S. House of Representatives because they're not going to elect a Republican in that district. She's a radical union organizer and a leader in the Democratic Socialism of America. She's heavily backed by New York's far-left networks. She wants to bring the housing market in the country under government control and establish state-run housing programs and effectively kill off the real estate business. She uses militant Marxist language. She declares workers deserve it all, but she frames private employers as exploiters who crush human dignity. Now, I get it. It sounds pro-worker to say workers deserve it all, but that's crazy. It's crazy. Nothing comes free. If you have a job, nothing comes free. And that's kind of what she's saying is we should have it for free. Just unrealistic. Should be, supporting the people that are creating jobs, not destroying them. So her platform attacks individual liberties and free markets, and once again, another one that wants to abolish ICE, strip away any border enforcement. So, she's a foot soldier for the globalist elites that we're talking about, because in the end, these World Economic Forum billionaires are the ones that want to take control. They're going to use this Marxist tool to get there. And I'm sure some of the people even the people that are the Marxists are ignorant to this. That's who they're being funded by. That's who they're working for. So it's just the way it is. Brad Lander, it's another one who won in New York for the 10th Congressional District. And he received heavy backing from Bernie Sanders. He was one of Zoran Mamdani's guys, the New York mayor. I'm sure you know, a socialist that won last year. He believes in state-enforced redistribution of wealth, and he demands that local wealth be subjected to centralized state control. He doesn't believe in open markets. So he aggressively attacks our national sovereignty, and even staged a stunt where he got arrested by ICE to actively protest against border enforcement. So in his victory speech, he used anti-Western rhetoric. He claimed that the United States is complicit in genocide. And so he's another one who wants to attack private capital. Obviously, I think, like I said, every one of these candidates want to dismantle border enforcement. They all want open borders. So, it's kind of the same pattern. That's what they're after. They're just after straight Marxist, socialist dictatorship. They don't want you to have freedom. They say they're working for you. You never do. Janice Lewis George. So this one's a little bit different. She won the Democratic primary for mayor of D.C., which means she's going to be the mayor of D.C. The Republicans not going to win there. And she's another card-carrying member of Democratic Socialists of America. And, she's going to run the Capitol. So good luck. Good luck, D.C. She believes in radical collectivism. And she's another one that believes in state-run housing. She doesn't want, private home ownership. She believes in state-run housing. She's already voted. She was there on the city council. She voted to spike property taxes and fund government housing vouchers. She voted to defund law enforcement. So if you've been to D.C., it can get rough there. She doesn't want the cops out there. So if you're a politician in D.C., good luck. Good luck. Good luck getting to your car. Good luck getting home. She, I don't know if I don't really have to say this about every one of these, but I guess I do. She forbids, or she's going to forbid the local police from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. She wants to halt deportations, even though it's not really her job. She's the mayor. She's not going to let her local police do that. And so she wants to essentially expand the dependency state inside Washington, D.C. Another one of these foot soldiers for the World Economic Forum elites. Graham Plattner, he's gotten a lot of press lately. He won the Democratic primary in Maine. Obviously, another Bernie Sanders guy. Now there's a Republican incumbent there, and his chances of winning are a little more dubious. So we'll see what happens there. But he is he's an economic populist. So he, when I say populist, that just means he wants giveaways. He wants to heavily regulate private business. And, Bernie Sanders has been there. He's been shielding him from a lot of scandals. He's had some extreme personal behavior. He's said some very controversial things. And he has a Totemkampf, which is a skull and crossbones worn by the SS. Now, he's trying to say that he doesn't know what that is, and maybe he doesn't. I don't know. It's kind of more of a, I don't want to say it's funny, but, just one of those personal attacks. But there's a lot of real things out there to go after him on. He's made anonymous online statements where he's called himself a communist. He's dismissed sexual assault charges that people have had. He's just been kind of a jackass. So he wants to completely nationalize American healthcare and have a government-run structure for everything. Now, consider we're almost there already. We don't have to go very far. I think it's 2/3 of our national budget goes towards healthcare as it is. We have the most expensive healthcare system in the world. Why on earth would you think it's better for the government to take over? That's the problem already. He wants to dismantle the billionaire economy and crush the ruling class. But he's just targeting the job creators, not targeting the real dangerous billionaires, those World Economic Forum types. He wants to give the Marxist oligarchs a pass and destroy the American job creators. So that's just the way it is. They're not out there to help you. They're addicted to their political system. They're not thinking of the consequences. Then there's the Los Angeles mayoral race, which essentially is pitting two Marxists against each other. So there's going to be a Marxist in control of the city. It's just, what degree of Marxism do you want? You got Karen Bass. She's just in favor of heavy regulations. She wants rent control. She puts forth lots of bureaucratic red tape. And if you look at what's going on in the Palisades, where all those houses burned down, they're having a heck of a time getting anything done up there because of the regulatory red tape. She's not going to cut it. She doesn't care. She's not in favor of private real estate. Just like all of these Marxists, she wants it all state-run. And she's not interested in fixing her mistakes. There's been a lot of failures under her administration. Instead, she's just using identity politics every time it comes up. Any attack against her is racist. She hides behind that. She wants to expand the already massive socialist welfare programs in Los Angeles. And basically, she wants to keep the entire population relying on government, at least the people that need those programs. And those people are unfortunately expanding with the state of our economy right now, inflation. Her opponent, Nithya Raman, is another open member of the Democratic Socialism of America. I mean, these are just hardcore Marxists. They're not hiding it. And she is against the police. She was on the city council there, as I said, and she voted against hiring police. She slashed funds from law enforcement. She opposed restrictions, this is crazy, on keeping homeless encampments away from schools and daycare centers. So you get a homeless encampment right outside your kid's school or daycare center. She tries to say she's fighting against corporate money, but actually she just wants to strip private property away. She just wants government control of everything. And, it's just two more defenders of the Marxist oligarch system, which is about control. Dr. Abdul El Sayed, this one hasn't happened yet. He's running for U.S. Senate in Michigan. He's way up in the polls. His primary is coming up in August. Um, he wants total nationalization of the healthcare system. We just talked about that. He wants to outlaw private health insurance and replace it with the state-controlled healthcare, which that always leads to shortages. It's never good. People die waiting for care in those systems, and sometimes those systems decide who's going to die, so they don't necessarily value human life. He uses very aggressive class warfare language, and he attacks the American producers and job creators. He calls them the would-be oligarchs, and then ignores the actual oligarchs, the actual overlords that we all see. And including, some of the people that fund him, like the George Soros linked NGOs. They directly bankrolled Al Sayed as the Soros American Fellow. So he allows these transnational oligarch billionaires to pay him off, but he's trying to kill the actual job producers. Donovan McGinney is another one. He has a primary in August as well in Michigan. And he's challenging a center-left incumbent, but he's backed by that same coalition of socialists, Bernie Sanders socialists. Anti-market, demanding government control over corporate assets and complete government control of the healthcare industry, eliminating private insurance. Kind of the same thing these guys are doing. He says the billionaires are robbing us blind. Yeah, they are. Just not the billionaires you're talking about. So, it's just the same thing over and over. Cory Bush was kicked out of Congress once. He's trying to come back. The Missouri 1st Congressional District, St. Louis. And I lived just outside of St. Louis for a while. It's kind of a weird place because it's very, very blue, very socialisty, and it's surrounded by a sea of red. So just kind of an odd place. So I don't know that she'll be elected. I think there's probably enough people to vote against her. I don't know though, because she's running again. She runs on a collectivist agenda. She was one of the squad, so no secret. Same thing. Government control of housing. She wants to seize private property, defund law enforcement. It's all the same things. State managed welfare. Of course, we talked about this. Pruitt Igoe was in St. Louis. That was the first public housing program. So St. Louis has been targeted with these socialist welfare programs longer than any other U.S. city. So it just keeps going on. And unfortunately, St. Louis is got some of the poorest areas in the country. It's got some of the highest crime rates in the country. So, and it's kind of sad because it's not the whole city. Like I said, I lived there. It's really relegated to a few areas in the city. And some of it comes over from Illinois and St. Louis just have the Missouri River, or Mississippi River, sorry, and the Missouri River, by the way, dividing them. And East St. Louis, which is right across the river, is one of the highest crime areas, not only in the country, but in the world. You just break it down by that area. I know a lot of people from East St. Louis, great people there, but there's a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems in St. Louis, unfortunately. And a lot of those problems are from these programs early on because, not to get too deep into this, but when the federal government, on a great society, wanted to put Pruitt Igoe in, they had to destroy a lot of the actual community help organizations. A lot of these churches and whatnot were there to help, particularly the Black community, get housing for their own homes. And a lot of those programs were wiped out to make room for public housing. So you can go back and read that history. that's out there. And so people like Cory Bush, they're just, just part of this legacy and just walking down this road and hurting the city more and more, hurting the country. Not helping. Decades, decades hasn't helped. Just made things worse in the city. And it's sad because I think St. Louis is a great city. And I think there's a lot of good people there that don't need this. They want to improve their city and they want to work. They want to succeed like everyone else. And unfortunately, the system won't let them. And I think, their anger is a lot of propaganda in those communities, and they misapply their anger sometimes. Maybe it'll change. I don't know. Cory Bush isn't out. So you can see with the lineup, deliberate march through our institutions of Marxists taking power or trying to take power. And on the America First side, we defeated a lot of the stuff in 2024, but everybody seems to have forgotten how bad things were and why we united. And Tucker Carlson, he just announced he's leaving the Republican Party. Megyn Kelly and Michael Knowles both did segments on their shows over the last week, talking about how we need to get by these internal divisions and reunite. That's my message too. And then you have kind of the same people. Ben Shapiro, obviously Ben Shapiro had a pretty big show for a while. He's got an entire network that he runs. And then Dave Smith, whose show is a bit smaller. He's a libertarian, but he's still very notable. And these are two of the guys. They're kind of examples because they're not the only ones. But these two guys just go on this nonstop cycle of attacking each other. And they're attacking supposed enemies within the movement without recognizing who the movement is, especially Dave, man. God, you got to stop. I think we're probably on the same page, but yeah. But they're completely wrapped up in these foreign policy disagreements. Ben has turned into a complete Israel shill. He's been accused of being an Israel spy or an Israeli agent. Who the heck knows? And it's okay that he has this closeness with Israel, but I don't see the America loyalty with him. That's the problem. And, he's alienated a large chunk of his audience because of it. I used to be a daily Ben Shapiro listener, and I just couldn't do it anymore with him. I didn't want to hear about what's going on in Israel all the time. I don't live there. I'm not close to that. But Dave has just become completely obstinate. He's a single issue now about this Iran-Israel thing. Talks about it every time on his show. Until today. He did talk about these Democratic Socialists today. It was an interesting show. I think at the end, he came to the same conclusion as I am, but it took a while to swing through there. And he's doing a lot of blaming the other side. That's not going to help. And at one point, he actually stated that we would be better off, one of his earlier shows, it was recent, but when he was mad at Trump, he said we would have been better off if Kamala Harris had won the election. I just go, are you fucking crazy, dude? When I heard that, I was like, you completely lost your memory because if Kamala Harris had won, we wouldn't be fighting Iran. We'd be fighting Russia. So I guess you forgot how all in that, the neocons on the Democrat side, the neocons that control both sides, the deep state, how much they wanted to fight the Russians. They still do. It was the Trump coalition that stopped that crap. So you got to think. Dave went on his show yesterday and he mocked Michael Knowles for calling for unity. And he mocked him because Michael Knowles worked for Ben Shapiro. He didn't keep an open mind. Now, he himself doesn't have as much of an issue with Knowles as he does Ben Shapiro. He talked about it on the show, but just kind of mocked it, dismissed it. And I guess he's a New Yorker, and I'm not from New York. I've known people from New York. I had friends from there, and they can be kind of stubborn if they have that in them. But Dave, you need to wake the fuck up, dude. You'll probably never see this. I'm just a small podcaster, but that's my sentiments. So if you know Dave Smith, go send this to him. Tell them what I said. Let them be on my show and help me out. But it's not going to help because we're going to end up a socialist state, man. And we get it already. You don't like the Iran war. A lot of us don't. I don't either. It's the obvious, but it's time to move on. It's time to get onto some of these other subjects. What's going on? What's really affecting the country? Because hopefully the Iran thing is be out the door. I mean, you were right. Good job. You were right. It's pretty obvious to see that you were right. Now it's time to move on. So, stop with the circular firing squad. So we're going to promote the Marxists. You know it too because you mentioned it on your show. I think a lot of people understand it, the America First movement, but they're just too damn stubborn, too damn angry. So classical liberals in the America First movement are all completely furious about the Massey bullshit too. I get it. I get that too. But if the Marxists take full control because we walked away, it's going to be real hard for guys like Dave and his partner Rob out there, comedians, to do their comedy shows when the government passes speech codes like they have in Europe right now. That's going to be the result, man. For all of us, we're going to have speech codes. We're going to have to watch what we say online. We're going to have to watch what we say at the bar. People are arrested. A lot of them, thousands of them, are arrested over in England for saying the wrong thing. They violate the speech code. That's going to come here if you let the Marxists get elected. Now, the classical liberals, I said before, in one of my past episodes, they were part of the Republican Party until 1964. And they finally found their way back home under the America First banner. So to Dave and the other angry libertarians, stop running the fuck away. Just because you don't get your way in every single issue, the movement as a whole has gotten you far more than you ever would have gotten from any other administration, Republican or Democrat. And the Libertarian Party is not going to win the election. It's just not going to happen. I do wish, but it's not going to happen. The Libertarian Party is too disorganized. They're not funded well enough. The guy they ran last time was just just another progressive, nobody liked. I don't know why they put him forward. So, but I guess that's the best they got. I don't know. I don't have any answers for the Libertarian Party. I go to their meetings here locally in Kitsap County, and I love, I appreciate them, and no hit on the people of the Libertarian Party, but as a movement, we're not going to get a Libertarian candidate elected. It's going to be hard. Maybe in small local offices, maybe in Kitsap County we could, but not nationally. It's going to be really hard. So we got to be realistic. And, obviously, as I said, we were a natural part of the Republican Party at one point. Between 64 and 71, the Libertarians split off. They were mad because, when Nixon took over, he went out, he took us off the gold standard. It was the first big thing. And he just, continued to support the welfare warfare state. He didn't push back on the Great Society reforms. He kept the draft going. He kept us in Vietnam for a while. Eventually he got us out. But, that just completely pushed the Libertarians out, caused them to form their own party in 1971. So, Libertarians reuniting in 2024 under American First, we push back against the neocons, the reason we left at the beginning. And I know, obviously, from the recent actions, doesn't seem like we've made progress, but we have, because if neocons were in control, as I said, we'd be fighting with Russia, not Iran. And even with what we did with Iran, as stupid as it was, is pretty limited. Just an air-sea battle, troops on the ground. So you consider this in the light of what we've done in the past. It was minimal. It just pissed us off because Trump broke the promise to us. The America First, we embrace decentralized cryptocurrencies, so keeping those central bank digital currencies at bay, having an alternative with our money. And of course, the full pardon of Ross Ulbricht, which is not going to happen under anybody else. We've talked about this before. I'm just going to just highlight those high points. And that's what we get with the unified movement. We get what we want. Not everything, but we get a lot of what we want. So if you walk away, libertarians, you walk away from America First, you walk away from this movement, you're just going to hand control of the Democratic Party and the country to the Marxists and the GOP, what's left of it. It's just going to go back to the old school, Israel first, welfare, warfare, deep state. That's what you want. That's what you're going to get. And the Shapiro and the neocons, stop being arrogant assholes. You know damn well it was the libertarians and the progressives crossing over that put you over the finish line in 24. Kamala Harris was a horrible candidate. Horrible. But she still put up strong numbers. And you need to understand your old school neocon foreign policy ideas. People are tired of it. Country's tired of it. We've been at war for a long time, since 9/11. You guys need to put that to bed. We were promised after the Cold War we would have the end of history. Remember, Francis Fukuyama told us that. And, I know there had to be a response to 9/11. It was a big shock. Some people blamed it on blowback or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. We needed to fight back, but we didn't need to fight back like that. Some of this shit we did had nothing to do with 9/11. Big mistake. It was you neocons that pushed this. Stop. Stop being so arrogant. You guys have not been right. Work with the other side. The coalition. So we all need to understand we cannot win alone. Okay, we need to get back to those domestic issues that united us. President Trump is not going to be president after 2028. America First needs to come together now. Or you're going to be fighting a unified Democratic Socialist of America party. So, it's time to stop with these purity tests internally. We're not going to agree on everything, okay? We're not. But we agree on enough things. And is that disagreement really worth allowing the Marxists to come into power? You remember how bad it was? Just think back. Think back to COVID. Think about how bad it was for the country. So, you need to stop bickering. Oligarchs are putting Marxist Democrats in place to take control. United we stand, divided we fall. Time to wake up. Thank you for watching. This went a little bit longer than I expected, but please, if you're listening to this, spread the message because we need to stop. We need to get back on track and we need to win.